The global insurance industry is more than a market.
It's a movement powered by 3 million professionals around the world.
Together, we support communities as they rebuild after disaster.
Help businesses through risk and uncertainty.
Protect individuals as they plan for brighter futures.
This impact isn't possible without people.
That's why we attract, grow, and retain the very best talent.
Because when every voice is heard,
when every person feels they belong,
we don't just build careers.
We build a better tomorrow.
Belonging builds 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 tomorrow.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to have you here, whether you're joining in person or virtually. What a fantastic dive-in we've had this year in 2025. I want to thank everyone who's participated. It's shown that the issues that we are raising are just as important or more important than they've been in the 11 years that we've been running Dive-In, especially when you consider all the issues going on around the world and the debates. The issues of talent, of belonging, of making sure that we're building better businesses by exploring the topics that we've discussed over the last 3 days, and your participation has shown that they matter a lot for the future of our industry. And this year, we've had over 33,500 event registrations from people in nearly 100 countries tuning in to Dive In. And based on trajectories from last year, it shows that we are on track to have the best attended Dive-In festival on record. And I think that's pretty fantastic. And it's not just been record attendance. We have also had record sponsorship as well, showing that the companies that are part of our industry also have that commitment to want to improve as well. And I'm really proud to say, and we have one of the best friends of Dive-In here from the CII in the front row, that most of our events are CPD accredited, and for the first time we have that professional accreditation from ANZIF, the Institute in Australia and New Zealand, as well as South Africa and other countries as well. So it goes to show that in an era where professional development is being taken more seriously, that actually what we're learning in Dive-In is incredibly important to the industry and its continuous development. We've hosted 90 events in 60 languages in over 45 cities. We kicked off in Australia with an event on ADHD masking, and we're closing tonight in Brussels with an event on mental health and well-being. We've had over 300 incredible speakers, and we've got some fantastic ones here tonight. And we've covered some important topics such as leadership and emerging talent challenges, the role of AI in shaping our industry, and building cultures on belonging and measuring its business impact. And it's important that we continue to innovate because the issues that we face as an industry continue to evolve. I think the reason why we're all here and we feel the importance of being part of this insurance industry is that in our day-to-day jobs, we are asked to help solve some of the most intractable problems facing society all over the world. And we have to step up and be incredibly innovative in order to do that. And I firmly believe that if we're to do that successfully, to meet our clients' expectations, we need to widen the pool of talent from which we draw. And once they arrive, we need to make sure that they feel included and they have a great career. And I think that's what Dive-In does. A personal highlight for me, though, has been the number of volunteers, which just continues to grow. We have an incredible team that puts together Dive-In, and you all come along, and that's great. But if it wasn't for the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers who helped put this together, I don't think we'd have such a great Dive-In. So please, a huge hand for our volunteers. One of the great success stories of extending Dive-In beyond its 3-day remit has been the launch of our Dive-In to Reverse Mentoring. And so we've had over 300 participants already signed up. We're still signing up the third cohort. You have another month after today, so if you haven't already done it, can I encourage you to do so? The anecdotal feedback that I've had from people who have participated in that has been incredibly positive, so very much encourage you to be part of that. The Where I Belong campaign has also been very heavily featured on social media. You saw it there in the ident video. Please, you've still got time. We'd love you to join in that as well. We've also had record coverage in the media. So perhaps because these issues have been so prominently debated, they've actually attracted a lot of attention. So hopefully you've seen some of that coverage as well. But tonight is a chance to reflect, to celebrate, and to look ahead. But before we can do that, we really have to thank, and I know that Nick will provide a few thanks later, but as chair of Dive In, and I've chaired Dive In now for 7 or 8 years, we really couldn't do it without the long-term team. To Sam, to Kathy, to Chloe, Jamie, and Olivia here at Lloyd's, incredibly grateful for all the work you do week after week. The planning for next year's Dive In will begin almost immediately after this week, but perhaps after a small rest. To the team at Gong who support us, to Joe and to Caroline and to Ethan, a huge thank you to you. A thank you to our sponsors who've turned out in record numbers. Very grateful to you. To Nick Line, who has been a great support to me as the new chair of inclusion at Lloyd's. Nick, you are incredibly passionate about these issues, and your leadership, particularly in the London market on these issues, has been huge boost to what we're trying to do. You had some big shoes to fill in Dom Christian, but Dom, I hope you won't mind me saying that Nick has filled them more than adequately. Nick, thank you very much for all that you do. But my biggest thanks, as always, has to be to the incredibly Julia Hayward. Julia, Dive In wouldn't happen without you, and we're very, very grateful for everything that you do. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Brenda Emmanus, a renowned broadcaster and journalist. Brenda's warm and versatile style has made her a trusted voice in lifestyle, fashion, arts and culture programming. And she's interviewed some incredible figures, including Oprah Winfrey, Elton John, Will Smith, Angelina Jolie, Daniel Craig, which particularly caught my attention, and Clint Eastwood, just to name a few. Brenda, thank you very much. Welcome onto the stage.
Please say hello to my new agent. Good evening, everyone. I hope we find you well. Thank you very much for joining us for this closing event of the Dive In Festival. It's been an extraordinary, packed 3 days of diving into some great conversations, some collaboration, and of course, some celebration of your wonderful achievements. The festival has once again brought us together across borders, perspectives, and experiences. This year's theme, Belonging Builds Tomorrow, has given us inspiring conversations, thought-provoking lived experiences, and powerful ideas to carry forward. So, as we close the festival, it feels only right that we do so with some voices who have not only broken barriers, but also embody the power of leadership, resilience, and authenticity. First, it's my absolute privilege to introduce you to our keynote speaker. She's someone who knows what it means to challenge boundaries and break barriers. As first female fighter jet pilot, you heard that correctly, first female fighter jet pilot, she paved the way in a world where belonging was far from guaranteed. Today, she brings her unique insights on resilience, leadership, and creating environments where everyone can thrive. So I beg you to give a very, very warm welcome to Jo Salter.
Thank you, Brenda. And I mean, belonging, it's a funny word, isn't it? Because what does that really mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? Because it might mean really, really different things. But for one moment, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to imagine yourselves being in control of 25 tons of screaming metal. And imagine that you are flying at 600 miles an hour at the height of a treetop. And what that means is that you're usually down in a valley and you can see the weather closing in ahead of you. It rolls down the mountain and you're always calculating the risk. You're thinking, have I got enough minimum safety distance to get through? It's like a letterbox. Will the cloud pull me down? What's the next event? What about the one after? What if I don't make my time on target? What about my wingman? What about the other one? What if I pull up? And you're continuously thinking and making decisions. But I mean, I loved it. I really loved it. But I was lucky enough to have been the right age at the right time, because does anybody know what they want to be when they're young? Anyone knew when they were 13 or 14 what you wanted to be? And did you make it, Shaun? Yeah. Shaun wanted to be a quiz master. Was it that? He wanted to be a lawyer. He wanted to be a lawyer, yes. I did guess it was probably that one. And my sister did that, exactly. But I did. I knew what I wanted to be from the age of 13. And I wanted to be a hairdresser. Because honestly, I grew up in South London. I went to a local comprehensive. And I loved hair and makeup. And I spent my time doing that. And then we had this bus arrive at the school, and it was called the WISE bus, Women in Science and Engineering. And I think it's amazing what a difference one person can make to the whole trajectory of your life. Because I got on this bus and this lady said to me, "What are you going to do next?" And I said, "Well, I love maths. Why don't I become an accountant and study accountancy?" And neither of my brothers had been to university. And she looked at me and she said, "If you study accountancy, that's all you can be. If you study engineering, you can be whatever you want in the world." And honestly, I wanted to be whatever I could in the world, even though I had no idea what that was. And I went home, I went, "Mum, I'm going to be an engineer." She went, "Do you know what that is?" I went, "No, I don't." And we had, for those of you in the UK, my grandparents lived with us, and we had a newspaper called The Sun newspaper, which had a lot of photos in the day. And I remember my mum buying this Telegraph, and it was huge, and it went over the whole table. And she said, "Get yourself a sponsorship." And the year that I applied to university was the first year that the Royal Air Force decided to give engineering cadetships, engineering sponsorships to women. And they gave 10%. And you weren't allowed to fly. That was against policy. And I would love to stand in here in front of you and say all I ever wanted to be from 13 was to be a fighter pilot. But how can you be something you can't see? How can you imagine being something that isn't in your social group or isn't available or is against the law? Anyway, I came up to London. I mean, there was this brilliant film on at the time called Desperately Seeking Susan with Madonna, so I knew how to dress for my interview. I've put my Doc Martens on, very well walked in, because that is important with DMs. I've got my short little skirt, I've got bangles up and down, and I walk into the Careers Information Office, and there's this very smart man and woman in their uniform, and they think I've gone in to ask for directions. I'm like, "Nah, I've come for one of them cadetship things, haven't I?" And they looked at me and they laughed. They said, "But you would need to become an officer." And they made a judgment on me, on whether I belonged, by how I looked, by how I sounded. How often do we do that? How often do we judge others based on the experiences that we've had, when in fact, what true belonging is actually having this amazing, diverse group of people who can use their talents and be the best version of themselves. And they sat me down, they said, "Go and sit with this group of guys." And they were all looking identical in dark suits. And I sat there in my flash of colour with that voice in my head saying, "Girl, you've got to get out of here. You do not belong." And what is that voice that we hear? Because sometimes we listen to the wrong one. How do we learn to listen to that voice of intuition, that one that is going to take us on the right path and not the one that's going to fill us with fear? My mum had bought me a book when I was 22, which is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. How do you take that as the energy that courses around your veins and allows you to do things? Took my youngest daughter to her job. It was doing an insurance help desk. And I am a loving mother. And I said to her, I will walk in, I will introduce myself to all your help desk friends. She told me I wasn't normal. And that would I park around the corner where no one could see me? And we sat in the car, and then she grabs hold of her tummy. She says, but Mum, my tummy hurts. It feels like it did when I was at school. And she hated school. School was not good for her. But it got me thinking. Got me thinking how I love to go and weight train, and I loved that feeling when you've built your muscles and you know that you have got stronger. And I love that feeling in my head when I have worked on something and I'm firing new neurons and neural pathways, and I know I have become more knowledgeable. But how come? How come when our tummy hurts, what we do is we tend to step back? What if that is the muscle that we should be stretching? Because we all have a comfort zone. And I promise you that the more time you spend in your comfort zone, the smaller it becomes and the less you can do. And actually, maximum learning is right on the edge of panic, right on the brink of thinking, I don't know if I can do this or not. What are you doing that just scares you a little bit every day? That really allows you to stretch, to become more, because we need to learn to become comfortable in discomfort. In fact, I got my cadetship, studied engineering, and then they announced women could fly, and I put my hand up. But I put my hand up because the aptitude tests were literally 3 miles from where my mum lived, and I could go and have a cup of tea with her. And sometimes that is how we make decisions. But it's about the opportunity. How do we make sure that we see the opportunity and then we step into it? That we knock on the door, and if the door isn't opening, how do we tear the wall down? And how do we make sure that we do that and turn around and put our hand out and say, how can I help you come to? Because that is about collaboration. That is about working together. That is about diversity, finding the people and spotting what they are good at. Now, the kit that we had to wear when I got onto the front line, when I became Britain's first female fighter pilot flying the Tornado, there were 5 of us in the world. In fact, I went into Canada in Goose Bay and the female F-16 pilot walked in. So there were 2 of the 5 in the same place. She was 6 foot tall with long blonde hair, and my squadron said, why don't you look like her? But then she said, hey, Joe, you want to come fly with me? And I said, yes, I do. And so I got a trip in an F-16, and my squadron mates weren't pleased there. But when you cross the Atlantic, this is not business class. Not only is there nobody offering you chicken or beef, there's also no toilet, and you need to pee. And the truth is that all of the kit was designed around men. Extra zip, and the guys were issued with a super absorbent sponge with a plastic bag, and they would pee into the sponge. I mean, what was I going to do? Well, the RAF took this really seriously, and I was invited to take part in the RAF Women's Urinary Pads Trial. Now, this trial consisted of peeing on demand, and I don't know how ever you've had to do that at the doctor's and how hard it is. Well, they wanted me to pee sitting in a centrifuge at 7G. 7G? Has anyone been in a centrifuge? You start going round and round. You're trying desperately to keep conscious, desperately to keep the weight of your head up, when suddenly somebody through your headphones says, ready, steady, pee. But needless to say, I did decline the offer. But it's a serious concern, because when you're up above the cloud, the sun beats in on you. If you dehydrate, you become less intelligent because your brain shrinks. You haven't got the visual, the blood flow for your optic nerves, so your visual acuity is decreasing. And when we really think about high performance, and that they say that the only thing that's harder than being a Formula 1 racing car driver is flying a modern fast jet, you have to be aware of all of these things. And when you need to refuel, usually 4 aircraft and a tanker, and it dangles behind it this basket And you have a probe the size of my arm, and the book says at a slow walking pace, I'm not sure how you're supposed to figure that out at 35,000 feet and 300 knots. You just have to plug in to refuel. So you have to be in what I call a watchful alert state, always being aware and conscious. So what did I do? I went to the local chemist and I bought myself some Bridget Jones plastic pants and some, we'll call them nappies. I think they're called incontinence pads. And I did my own trial, but needless to say, it worked. And the guys called it my nappy. They used to see me waddling to it. And in fact, they finished the trial and they spent about 2 million. And the answer was plastic pants and pads. So I really could have made quite a lot of money out of that. Now, I just want to tell you one more story before we go to the panel. And I have done so much in my life, but 3 years ago, the phone rang, and it was BBC Breakfast. I mean, Brenda, how do they get your telephone number? I have no idea.
I'll get killed if I tell you.
Oh, she'll get killed, or I'd get killed. One of us would be killed. I'm not quite sure who. Well, let's not do that. But anyway, it's BBC Breakfast, and they said, would you come on BBC Breakfast tomorrow morning and talk about flying the Tornado because it's the premiere of Top Gun Maverick in Leicester Square today? And I said, let me think about it. And I put the phone down, and my husband said, who was that? I said, oh, it was BBC Breakfast. They want me to go on breakfast telly. He went, great, what time? I said, I'm not sure I can do it. Because I have learnt to be honest. I've learnt to remove the mask and to just be who I am. And I did not want to look fat and stupid on TV. Honestly, that was my stop, because I cared about what other people were going to say about me. And he said, well, you're the one that says put your bold boots on. You're the one that says get out of your comfort zone. You're the one that says feel the fear and do it. I was like, all right, mate, that's enough. And so I ring them back, and when I'm in, I am all in. And so next morning, I'm at the Royal Air Force Museum at Hendon in London. And the guy said to me, I'd like you to talk to the camera and walk along, and then I'd like you to walk backwards up the steps. All my friends were like, we just wanted you to fall over, because that's the sort of friends I have. And I'm at the top of this ladder, and I've got the Tornado. They had the Tornado I'd flown my second ever trip on the squadron in. How do you think that feels, that my aeroplane lives in a museum? And I'm there, and I'm talking about going supersonic and about how the wings go from 25 to 45 and 67 like a dart. I'm talking about the head-up display and the radar warning receiver and everything that you carry, and the ejection seat, and what would happen if you pulled that, and the miniature detonation cord, when I thought, how many people are watching this? So I looked straight down the camera and I just said, it's just such a shame I don't have tickets for the Top Gun Maverick premiere tonight. 3 o'clock that afternoon, I got given 2 tickets to the Top Gun Maverick premiere. I did not think of asking my husband, I will be honest, but I did ask both my daughters, and they both said yes. But the then 24-year-old had left home the weekend before, so I punished her for leaving her mother. And because we have to build resilience in the young, it's a very important thing. In fact, she came to Leicester Square and waved at us. And her sister and I waved back. And we got on the red carpet, and Beth looked at me and she said, Mum, look, there's another red carpet. She went, I think that's a better red carpet. I think we're supposed to be on that red carpet. And how often do we do that? How often are we given the most amazing things for us, but we look sideways at what other people are doing and think about that? And honestly, we got free popcorn, and if anyone's bought popcorn in a cinema, you'll know that it was worthwhile going. And what a brilliant film, Top Gun Maverick. Will we meet Tom Cruise, Beth says? No, we won't. And we're leaving, and I see the chair of the charity, and I waved to her, and I'm like, thank you, thank you. She says, come over. She went, oh, Joe, I'm so glad you haven't left yet. She said, I told Tom you were here. He would really like to meet you. I think I could squeeze that in. So I said, Beth, we're going over the barrier. We're going to meet Tom Cruise. Would you take a video of me? It is the worst video a 19-year-old has ever taken. She was shaking so much, her knees are knocking. We get 5 minutes together. Tom has pulled 9G. I've only pulled 7G. I actually did the job. He only pretended to do the job. So winner, winner, chicken dinner is what we say. And BBC Breakfast said, can we send a satellite truck to your house because we'd like to record you in the morning because you met Tom Cruise? I was up to 3 in the morning cleaning my kitchen. And it's the next morning and I've got this little mini tornado behind me and I've put my dog tags on, I've got a leather jacket, I've backcombed my hair a bit. I do not know who I am, but I am a television presenter at this point. And they said it'll be 2 or 3 minutes. 11 minutes. They kept asking me questions, so I thought, well, they're definitely waiting for something. So I looked down the camera and said, it's such a shame I've never flown in a Eurofighter Typhoon. The next week, I got to fly in a Eurofighter Typhoon. I felt a bit nervous, but not about flying, about what people were going to say about me. And I remember the canopy closing and that feel of being on my sofa and the smell of aviation fuel, which is my second favourite essence in the world. And we got airborne and we did a performance takeoff, which means you go up like a rocket and you are at 10,000 feet before the end of the length of the runway. And the guy let me fly most of it, and it was so easy to fly this modern jet. And then I'm an ambassador at the Royal International Air Tattoo, and I was there a month later, and the organisers came up to me on the Friday, and they said, Jo, we've just been told that Tom Cruise is coming for the day tomorrow. As you know him, will you host him? I said, yes, I will. So I spent the whole day with Tom, and I took him back to his helicopter at the end of the day. And I mean, I'm a hugger, and I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So I got really formal, and I stood like this, and I put my hand out quite rigidly, and he took my hand, and he put his head on one shoulder, and he said, Jo, thank you. So I think he had a good day. And then he brought me in, and he gave me a very long hug. He did not let go for a very long time. Okay, one of us did not let go for a very long time. Thank you very much.
I am now in my discomfort zone following that. And I thought I'd seen you before because I actually did the red carpet for that, and he was late for the lives, and I know why now. He takes about an hour meeting fans, and clearly I know why. Anyway, my love, I'd like you to come back onto the stage because you are one of our panelists while I introduce the others. You've already met our superb first guest for our panel, Tom Cruise's best friend. Let me introduce you to the others. My second guest is a leader who embodies vision and integrity at a global scale. As global chairman of Aon, Dom Christian has been instrumental in shaping the future of the insurance industry and championing inclusion across the sector. He leads with both head and heart, proving that when leadership embraces belonging, entire industries move forward. Please welcome Dom Christian.
Brilliant.
I'd next like to invite a trailblazer whose career inspires countless others. As the former MD of Stephen Bartlett's social chain, growing the startup agency from 30 employees into a £300 million global marketing leader. She was also CEO of Relentless Group. Katy Leeson is known for her bold leadership, creative energy, and her commitment to empowering others to thrive in both business and life. She is a brilliant example of how when leadership is rooted in authenticity and courage, it drives real progress. Please welcome Katy Leeson. Our next guest hardly needs any introduction to British audiences, particularly quiz fans. Known and loved as a formidable chaser on the hit game show The Chase, Shaun Wallace has built a reputation for not only his sharp mind, but also for his charm and generosity of spirit. Beyond television, he's also a barrister, a lecturer, and an advocate for education and inclusion. Please welcome the big man, Shaun Wallace. And I will walk with a little bit of grace over to join you. Let me
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Still.
Oh, fine.
Ah. You.
Lovely.
Right, So welcome to our esteemed panel as we close this fantastic global festival which champions positive inclusion and workplace culture. Now, I mentioned some of the amazing achievements of you all, but we also know how amazing this Dive Festival has been. So it would be remiss of me not to ask a quiz expert not to use your own expertise. So just to warm up our audience, I'm going to let you loose on our audience with a little quiz.
Good, okay. That's what I'm here for. So I'm going to ask and pose 3 questions. Let's see how we get on. And it's multiple choice.
What's the prize to go up in an aeroplane with Joe?
Actually, the prize will be, I'll give a Chase mug.
Whoa! That's worth fighting for.
And if you come to see me afterwards, I'll give you your details, I'll have it sent to you. So, question number 1, and it's a multiple choice. Since its launch in 2015, how many cities have the Diving Festival expanded to by its 10th anniversary in 2024? Is it A, 36, B, 42, C, 53, or D, 61?
Different numbers.
Oh.
Or 60 or 75.
Or any of those.
Or any of those.
Oh, there's 42% think 75, 32% think 60. The answer is 60. Someone's on their way to a mug.
And somebody should give me better questions. Okay, try this one to emphasize. Question 2. Approximately how many participants have attended diving events globally over the past 10 years? Is it A, 75,000? Is it B, 98,000? Is it C, 128,000? Or is it D, 150,000?
I think 160 up there.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Humans and robots never get on, do they? 55% think 160,000. And the answer?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You might need some more mugs, mate.
Yes, looks like it. And question number 3. What was the theme of the very first diving festival? Was it A, diversity dividend? Is it B, inclusion impact? Is it C, D&I is good for business? Or is it D, time for inclusion? So it's actually C.
Oh, who's the winner?
Ooh. Nick Barnaby.
Nick Barnaby.
He's not a former England footballer, is he?
Is Nick in the room? We'll make sure
Nick
he
Barnaby.
gets... Oh,
Nick
there's
Barnaby.
Nick.
Okay. Where is he?
Congratulations.
Where is he, Nick? Put your hand up there, Nick.
He's just there.
Is it? Come and see me afterwards.
The
with your
mug's on
details,
its way to you.
And
as
I'll
is
make
tea
sure
with...
it will get sent to you, okay?
And tea with Tom and Joe, of course.
Okay. Give me a round for Nick. Give him a round.
Thank you. You still got it.
I think so, but I won't be taking Bradley's job any day soon.
I'll start with you then, because your last question highlighted a consistent sentiment of the festival that diversion and inclusion is good for business. So as a proud advocate of inclusion, what do you personally believe makes it, do you think it is as important now as it was when it
always will be important. And as I say, it took brave pioneers to actually help develop the concept of diversity and inclusiveness. You know, people like Jason, people like Dom, you know, taking the initiative, you know, showing how important it is for a business to actually ensure that people who come into the business feel respected, feel they've got a contribution to make, and feel that they can actually eventually climb this sort of a meritocracy ladder in terms of going to the higher echelons of management. So I think it's always important, and I've seen it grow and grow and grow. The only worry which I have seen, I think we said it in the green room, that what's happening over the pond in relation to the so-called anti-woke, let's dismantle the so-called initiative because it's time-consuming, it's expensive, and when America sneezes, everybody catches a cold. And the one thing I want Britain to do, and especially British business is to do, is to actually be independent in relation to what's going across the pond, and basically continue to fight in relation to saying that inclusiveness, especially in the workplace, is extremely important and will continue to be so.
Well, the huge success of the last 3 days have been a testament to that. It's still important, still necessary and needed. Dom, you've been a visible advocate for diversity and inclusion. What have been the leadership lessons for you in learning to make people feel that they belong?
So a couple of things I might. It is really weird hearing your voice at the side rather than looking at you on TV. It's just kind of weird. The other thing I might say is the guy here who stood up there, when he said hide, he was so wrong. We are not hiding. This is what we're doing now. We're facing the subjects we need to face as a society, as a business, and so forth. He is so wrong, that guy, if you don't mind me saying, for those who don't know our community. He's completely out of it. He doesn't understand what we're trying to do. And to do it at this event, I find quite bizarre, if I might say. That notwithstanding. What are we trying to do in business? So we start with the premise, which is that last question, which was D&I in business, and it's we're trying to align, we're commercial enterprises. We're trying to align commercial values to personal values. We're trying to say most businesses, there's an argument at board levels, which most of you know here, which is what's more important in business, shareholders or clients? What diversity says is the most important thing in business is colleagues, the people you work with. Absolutely front and centre is how much you care about the people you work with. So how do you express that in a fair way? How do you express that in a way that is welcoming? How do you express that? You talk brilliantly, if I might say, but what you talk to, if I took 2 words away from what you said, it would be about fear and courage. And what you were saying to us is, of course I was fearful when I did certain things, but I overcame that. I had the courage to do things. You didn't congratulate yourself in any way, which I thought was extreme. You're a extraordinarily humble person, by the way, given what you've achieved. But it was a lesson to me, which we have to show more courage. And you're right, mate, if I might say, sure. Now is the time for courage. 10 years ago, by the way, required more courage than it did 7 years ago. Now we're back at 10 years ago, in my view.
Can I add that, of course, when we're courageous, we make ourselves vulnerable.
Sure.
And that vulnerability brings us to a different level as well. So we have to be prepared, because actually with the changes that we're seeing in the world, when you look at the multiple crises that are happening, we actually need people, and this is my mission belonging, right? 100% caring and 100% daring. How do we have people who have that courage to step out and put the flag in the sand and say, come on, let's go this way, and the humility to pick it up and say, it's not this way, or do you know what, it's your turn to lead, it's not mine. But we have to do it with care and empathy and love, because I've never met anyone who doesn't want to be seen more, heard more, and honestly, loved more, because that is what is so important.
An important thing which you said, Joe, and which Dom, as I say, clearly alludes to, is the fact that in leadership roles, it's always important, and one of the things which I think which defines me is that I want to put down what I call the ladder of opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's important that I'm always forward-thinking, but you should always look back. Because one thing I'm conscious about is this: I'm not going to live forever. And I think it's important that we as leaders, or we as people in a position of responsibility who can empower, who can help others, should put that ladder of opportunity down for others to climb up. And I don't want you to climb up to the same level as me. I want you to go beyond me. Because if you go beyond me, you're then setting the bar for another, to a different standard. And so it should be, continue ad infinitum, I think.
You've got generosity of spirit and you've got foresight. I've come across so many companies at the moment who are so terrified of that kind of agenda. And the real challenge for them often is bringing middle management around. But how do you manage, how have you, not coerced, how have you seduced and made people see that this is really, really important? What's been the challenges for you to kind of make, as a leader and as someone who has put their neck on the line?
The challenge for me is in one area of diversity, and that is the challenge of young mothers in this middle area. Because what happens in our world is that client is king or queen, And that means activity and connection with clients on a sort of very daily basis. And there are moments as a young mother that's more difficult. So you're having less client connectivity. So what we're having in our industry, and this is true by the way of many, I think, is on the client side of our life, we have less women coming through than we do on the sort of operational side, because you can do your finance job more at home, you can do your HR job more at home, and so forth. So it's more that specific audience for me. It isn't just that audience where we need to do a better job. So how do you do that? You do it in part by educating your clients. So that's where the client education has to come in through the values that we have, hopefully, as an organisation.
So let me bring in an inspirational woman. Now we're on women. Katy, now you've had a career that has seen you in very competitive industry, workplace arenas and environments. How have you navigated that, and what advice would you give to women like yourself, especially you've been a young CEO who've had to kind of, in a way, speak truth to power at times? How have you managed taking this courage that Joe's talked about?
I was made Managing Director of Social Chain, which is Stephen Bartlett's first company, at the age of 32. And I'd only been in the company for 6 months. So I'd taken over this huge growing company and just thought, oh my God, what? I don't even know what the company does. So I was also, everyone was looking at me, waiting for me to have all the answers, and I was still trying to figure out 6 months in what that company did. And I think as I've grown as a leader, and what I've really tried to do is lead with empathy and try as well to put the ladder down, help people rise, help people get better than me, build a team around me that are better than me and can supplement my skill sets, but also just speak out. And I think one of the things that has made me be able to sit on panels like this today is just being really honest. It is hard, but by being able to speak openly and honestly about the challenges, it means people want to work with me. It means people want to listen to what I've got to say, and I hope that that means, as a young female leader, it helps other people want to do that as well.
But you've also taken ownership of your success, in that you talk a lot about your imposter syndrome. You've even had therapy to deal with it. So and you talk about also having been a brand and seen yourself as a successful brand. How has that helped you sort of climb the ladder and feel that you belong in corporations where they're not necessarily, you may be the only one?
Yeah, my imposter syndrome is massive. It hits me all the time. It's still there, but 70% of successful people suffer with imposter syndrome. So we all think we're on our own with it, and we all think we're going to get sacked on a daily basis, but we're actually all together. We're all imposters, really. And yes, I've had therapy for it. And one of the things that the therapy really helped me with was understanding where my strengths were and why I was right for that role. And then also how to deal with business Katy versus personal Katy, which is like Beyonce and Sasha Fierce. So I know that if I've got to go in and make a really difficult decision, I try and find business Katy or my Sasha Fierce, and that really helps me step into that role. And then also building a brand around it has just been about me being a really authentic leader. I'm really honest. I will tell people that I've got imposter syndrome and I've been to therapy for it, because my why is really strong. My why is, if one person in this room listens to me talk about imposter syndrome or go into therapy, and then they decide that they're going to do it as well, then I've done my job. So that's my why.
I can totally relate to that, because I used to wear my imposter syndrome like a uniform, and I thought, this is not helpful, I'm going to change my outfit. And now I just think to myself, how do you fit in as well as and stand out? So Joe, how would you answer that? How do we fit in to an environment, to a work culture, and still stand out, still bring our whole selves to work?
I mean, let's go right to the extreme of turning up on the first day on a squadron where they've never had a woman on the front line. And I will be honest, I turned up and I'd been 3 years of professional training. I'm a good pilot. I'd done 3 years of my degree before that, so I'm in my mid-20s. I'm really nervous. And one of the senior navigators comes out to meet me, but he gets right in my face and he says, "You need to know that you are not welcome here. We're going to do what we can to get rid of you as soon as we can." What do you do? Because you always have a choice, always. And I think it's really handy having had 2 big brothers, because, again, that helps build resilience, you know, with a reasonable big family, a dysfunctional childhood. That all adds to it. And I walked in, I took a deep breath and walked in anyway. And in fact, the boss of that squadron, there were 8 tornado squadrons at the time, and they all were asked who wanted the girl. 7 of them said, "No, thank you." I'm not sure they're the words they used, honestly. But one of them said, is she a good pilot? Then why wouldn't I want her? And this guy had been to see the boss a couple of days before I arrived and said, by the way, when the woman arrives, I won't fly with her. And he'd said, thank you for letting me know. And he went straight to the programmer and said, when Jo arrives, make sure he flies with her straight away. And he just enabled me to get on with the job. And I think that there is something about the recognition that there were people in the background, there were men in the background who were smoothing the path to enable me to go and do that job that I wasn't aware of. And that actually when we're thinking about belonging, when we're thinking about the diversity and inclusion that we were talking about, that we need to have people, again, with that courage to step up and step out and speak out and make a difference. Because I don't know about any of you, I don't like the society we've become.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to start doing something about it. And we need to start doing something which is about nurturing and building up and helping people thrive and not criticize. And when we do that, then, oh my goodness, are we going to fly?
So I think I'm fascinated at 70%, you know. I thought it'd be 100 if people were being honest. But I think it's about a history of hierarchy. And you were almost taught if you couldn't be this level unless you were a certain type of person. And I think, thankfully, that's beginning to change, which reduces hopefully that imposter thing a little bit, not totally. You're fascinating me because you built your own business as an imposter. Mm-hmm. I was an imposter, I still am, but I had inspirational leaders who taught me that I was actually okay. So to me, it's about inspirational leadership. It's kind of easier if you're in a company where you've got inspirational leaders. If you're the leader and building your own company, it fascinates me how you deal with that subject.
I'm a daughter of two teachers.
Is that
I had
how it
no
works?
choice, yeah. I could not fail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the ambition was in it, or the instinct is to, yeah, okay. So our world is one where everyone here, they wouldn't be here otherwise, is a leader and will be. You don't attend these things if you're not going to be.
Shaun, you wanted to pick up on something that Jo said.
Yeah, and what's been alluded to, because I mean, I've always practiced as a barrister, so I've been always self-employed. And when I started out 41 years ago, I was one of the few black lawyers who were practicing. And when Jo asked me, you know, what do you want to be when you're 13? Well, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer because I used to watch programs like Crown Court and Petrocelli. And I used to ask myself, well, why can't I be like that? And the one thing as a young kid, I always used to say to myself, right, tomorrow's not promised to anybody, but the way in which I can stay in control of my own destiny and to try and help that happen is to make sure I had an educated mind. Now, going into a staunch traditional profession where, as I say, you come from a certain social background, you came from a certain university, you know, when I first did my very first Crown Court trial, I was nervous like anybody else. But I took comfort from the fact that even the best lawyers in the country were nervous, because nobody's born an advocate. You grow into becoming an advocate by practicing. And I remember I did my very first Crown Court trial, and what gave me the confidence was that the judge said my closing speech was excellent. That gave me so much confidence as a young practicing barrister, and I thought to myself, you know what? No matter how difficult it's going to be, and it's not easy trying to climb the greasy pole, because if you try to climb it, inexorably, you find yourself sliding to the bottom. But once you know how to grip that greasy pole, when you get to the top, the hardest thing is staying there. Mm-hmm. And for me, as I say, you know, I've had a sort of an undulating legal career. I've had my highs and I've had my lows. But I've used my skills as a barrister, where you're taught to think on your feet, you're taught to be fearless, you're taught to research. And I've transferred that into the shark-infested world of entertainment.
It is shark-infested.
Yeah, it is shark-infested, and you've got to know how to swim. But for me, we've all suffered that imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? But when you have validation like that, that gives you so much power and so much strength to believe that you can achieve and you can succeed. And I've been very, very fortunate and blessed in relation to what's happened to me in terms of my life. But I've always had an altruistic attitude to life. Dom's had that. Jason's had that. And that is why you've had these initiatives for the last 10 years, because you want to make a difference. You don't want to be seen as a sort of, oh, yeah, we'll do this for a day a year and it's going to basically be a tick box exercise and we'll just sort of... for you to be planning this 11 months for the year, that means you take these initiatives seriously. And people who do that have the right altruistic attitude to want to make a difference, not only for the company itself, but for the people who, as I say, are the cogwheels which make it work every single day.
I mean, what's really helpful and really inspiring for me to hear is the approach that Lloyd have taken to D&I and to inclusion and to belonging. I think it's outstanding considering the experiences I've had and heard from the past, and to be sitting on a panel with women who have worked from working class backgrounds who've done so exceptionally well. Because I remember when I first applied to the BBC, I didn't tell anyone because I automatically assumed I was going to get rejected. I wasn't white, I wasn't male, I wasn't Oxbridge, and I made it in. And the difficulty is, and I dipped into some of the conversations and some of the panels of the diving and I was hearing of apprentices who just could not get themselves through the door. And I think we also have to look at the approaches we have in engaging people to make them feel... You don't go to parties unless you feel welcome, and you've done an exceptional job of making people feel welcome once they're in. So I wondered if, and this is to all of you, what innovative approaches we can have, should leaders have, in adopting and attracting and retaining talent. I love the way you do... your interviews, for example. You don't have a very traditional way of interviewing. I wondered if you could share that with the audience.
Yeah, I don't look at CVs. I don't really look at experience. The thing that I'm there for is care. In any business that I'm in, I'm hiring on care because I know that creates the best working environment and the strongest team. So when I was at Social Chain, our average age was 22 of the team. I came in at 32. They thought the old lady was coming in to ruin the fun. But we had just a dynamic team. The one thing about us was we all had the same care for the company. We were all from very different backgrounds. We rarely hired people from university. It was that care, it was the willingness to want to be part of the journey, and that is what I've carried on hiring like since.
Fantastic. Now, Dom, belonging doesn't just happen by chance, does it? It requires intention, it requires leaders at every level to have deeply listen, it requires having psychologically safe spaces. So what else do you think? What would you be saying to leaders out there about how you got it right and what they should be doing, especially in this ever-evolving, really difficult climate?
The first thing I would say is, and it's to everyone here, not just those who are apparently leaders by title, never underestimate how many people wish to follow what you're saying when you're on a panel like this. Now, I look at this audience today, it is so different, as Jason can testify to, and one or two other people, Jen can, Catherine can, to what we had 10 years ago, here, just looking around at all of you. But when one of you, frankly speaking, Brenda, if you don't mind saying, you are an inspiration, just sitting there. You are all just inspirational. I'm not, I'm just part of it. Can I look at me? But you are. And we need to have more people, first of all, vocalising their style, and just being on panels and talking, and that is not easy today. It's got harder rather than easier, again, because of what's gone on in recent months, perhaps. Doesn't matter where and how at the moment. But, so more visuals, more vocal, more openness in terms of preparedness to be interviewed about topics. And you don't have to go against the sort of kind of dangerous corporate line in America, or that might be awkward for people, but you can talk to your story. And the fascinating thing always on these things, I think, no one wants a lecture. No one wants to be hectored about how bad men are. We know, some of us know how bad we are, but the actual truth is they want your story. So first thing is tell your story. Tell. Everyone to each other at work, tell your story. And then hopefully vocal, be open about your story and just tell people who you are. And actually the program I like most, we're a big company, so we can do big things and stuff, and it's a privilege of being in a big company, by the way, but the program I'm most proud of at the moment, which is Catherine's, is our social mobility program where we work. That's 1,500 people coming into the industry who are definitely not from an economic demographic you would imagine. How do you do it? You can't do it by going with respect to certain types of schools. You have to get other kinds of education. You have to go around the nation talking. Now, who's talking to people in their year 13, year 12, year 11? It can't be me. I'll do it, but I'm an old white guy, right? You need people who are, if you don't want me to say, you, and are younger and touch lives and have a story And if we can do that more and more, so the people going around doing that for us are in their 20s, and we demand it of them, and they're talking to people from different types of demographics, often the same as them, but they're sort of youthful, and they're excited. And they're not talking about insurance, they're talking about risk. As soon as you change language, a bit like, actually, Shaun was changing the language, you were using the word belonging. I didn't have the word diversity very much when you talked at all, actually, which I thought was great, if you know what I'm saying, because you're talking to the new language, which has to move on, I think.
So that said, we can't rely totally on just leaders to do all the work. It has to be all of us. So, Jo, can I ask you, in fact, all of you, what personal responsibility you think we should take for our careers and for wanting to belong and for having our voices heard? Because you obviously, you had courage, you had resilience, you took ownership of your fear. What would you be saying to people that are sitting quietly waiting for them to be noticed, doing a good job?
Well, I think there's two things. One, there was a lot of tough times. You know, it sounds like, you know, I just overcame my fear. Well, I mean, I lost count of the number of times I would go back to the officer's mess and ring my mum and cry down the phone to her and say, Mum, it doesn't matter that I can do this. It doesn't matter that I'm really good at this. They are not ready for me to do that. And that's the truth when you are a pioneer in moving forward and trying to do something. But we need to give ourselves permission. And there is something about allowing ourselves to go and take those calculated risks, to go and speak out, to be vulnerable, to have the courage. And it all starts with just saying yes and opting in. And I remember I worked for one of the big consulting firms, and I ran a big global digital upskilling. It was 157 countries, 270,000 people. And we had a saying which is, no one will be left behind unless you choose to be. And I think that is so powerful. And in our careers and in our lives, we have the vision of who we could be. And sometimes perhaps we don't even have that for different reasons. But let's not accept the things that are stopping us. Let's overcome them, and let's use that other people to help us, because we are born to live in community and work together. And so that, again, comes back to your point about belonging and doing stuff together to become the versions of ourselves that we're meant to be.
Well, Katy, you mentioned at the beginning of your story that Stephen recognised your talent and gave you the opportunity, but after that you've been confident enough now to blow your own trumpet, as it were. What encouragement would you give others that may be listening that perhaps still don't feel that they yet belong in the room or in the environment they want to be in?
I think Jo said it in her speech really well, that you can't be what you can't see. So if you're feeling like you're not visible or you're not seen, find your comfortable way of doing it. I was pushed into having a personal brand. It wasn't something that I naturally wanted to do. I'm an introvert, but I recognise, like I said, that if I can help one person by talking about my experiences, my therapy, my imposter syndrome, the challenges of being a leader, if that inspires one person, then I feel comfortable enough to talk. And I think it's finding that one thing. It doesn't have to be that you have to change the world, even though you might want to. It's about finding the one thing that you think you can make a difference in.
Thank you very much. Now, I believe we have some questions that are coming on Slido. I was waiting to get the iPad. I'm terrified. How do I come in? You're looking at a technophobe here.
As soon as they come through.
All right. All right, there. So if anyone's got questions, can they send them on Slido so that we know, please? While we're waiting for the questions to come, I want to ask you all, are you Eeyore or Winnie the Pooh about the future and how things will evolve? We've got AI, we've got other climate, we've got so many challenges. And how are you all feeling about where we are in terms of inclusion and belonging and the future of our workplaces? Do you think we've reached nirvana when it comes to a sense of belonging in D&I? Let's start with you, Jo.
I mean, I don't want to be Eeyore or Winnie the Pooh, to be honest. Is that okay? I think I'd like to be, I'm going to be Maverick.
Oh, I wonder why.
I had to, on the motorbike, though, not in the jet. But there is so much happening that actually what we need to learn to become and is adaptable, and to have a good work ethic, and to be, again, is sort of bring it back down to the basics of who are we as human beings and what we're trying to build and how we're trying to operate, because it can become overwhelming. the amount of technology. And what we are going to see with what's coming is completely new organisational shapes. And the opportunity that that is going to present is going to be amazing. Look at some of the jobs that people are doing now that didn't exist 10 years ago. How are we going to start to tap into that creativity that we have rather than it all being sat in an office on a computer? Because I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy responding to emails. And now ChatGPT can do it for me. I don't even need to do it. So how can we use our time differently? So let's rocket off to the future.
All right, let's fly on to the next question then, shall we?
Nice.
Give this one to Dom. The world seems to be becoming less inclusive. How can we as an industry push against this tide?
So, I love the previous question, by the way, because I like Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh. Can you do both?
I just don't want to be them. I like them, but I don't want to be them, no.
I trust your Winnie the Pooh anyway.
Well, yeah.
Are you going Eeyore or Winnie?
Well, they are struggling. The actual...
I need an ice man.
I look like Winnie.
I need an ice man.
I'm a more physical...
Ice man.
Kind of like... I was asked this morning while I was in Toy Story, while I was Woody or Bo Peep, so it's been quite a day.
Be Woody if you want. I'm not going to stop you being Woody.
But, how can we do more? First thing is we don't have a choice. So Robert Redford, I love Robert Redford's films on a week, all that stuff, and I'm sure viewers will be watching some Robert Redford films the weekend for those of us who know who he is.
One of my favourite interviews.
Well, really? Oh,
amazing man.
You do kind of put it out there. People, Robert Redford.
I worked hard.
I know, so it's brilliant. And, but he said, and it was 2002, in fairness, he said, if diversity is not alive, our industry is not alive. And that will be true here. So we have to do something about it. We have a great benefit in what we do, which is our industry is now having to be very contemporary. We have to understand cyber. We have to understand what's now going to be called, I think, extreme weather, meaning climate change, changing the language. We have to understand modern risks in a way that my generation finds it difficult to get to. So it has to be a younger industry. If it's going to be a younger industry, it has to attract people through things like proper values, as you've been articulating just now. So we have no choice. We can push against, but I think we push against it through the relevance of what we're doing, which is we're trying to understand risk. We need young talent to understand risk properly. And actually, if we don't get the young talent, companies like mine will have a problem. If we get that young talent, we will be successful. So.
But loads of questions are coming now. Tamara says AI will enhance. Oh, it's just jumped up. Hold on a minute. Oh yeah, AI will enhance work, but are you concerned that, sorry, it keeps jumping up and down. Excuse me, where's she gone? AI will enhance work, but are you concerned that it will impact diversity for underprivileged communities? How can we build on belonging in an AI world?
Well, I'm of the view that every business, as I say, has got to progress. And if technology enhances that business, then it's good for the business. But you should never, ever lose the core ideals for the people who run the business. And as long as they don't lose those core ideals in relation to what is important in terms of our diversity, what is important in terms of trying to encourage a diverse workforce to basically feel and believe that they can make a positive contribution, then no matter how progressive a company may become, those ideals must be steadfast.
I'll give this one to Katy. Samira says, as someone who is a bit of an introvert and wants to shine through, what ways could you suggest to do it without overdoing it?
One of my greatest tips on how to really show yourself up is create a boost folder. So that's something, when something good happens and then you need to share it, you've got a folder to back it up. Because I think when you are a bit of an introvert and everyone's talking over you and everyone can talk very loudly, I like to feel backed up by data and knowledge. So if I've got my boost folder, it's something I can always turn to be like, no, actually, I've done that. And this is from and it's all the evidence backed. I always like to feel more confident if I've got evidence. So it's like finding the thing that gives you that confidence to speak up.
And as I say, managers, leaders have got to create that environment whereby people are sort of shrinking violet or shrinking wallflower, that they feel, look, you can speak up, make that positive contribution. You won't be penalised. It won't be detrimental to your career. And if you create that environment, then even the most shyest person can feel that.
You just have to make them feel seen.
Yeah.
So, I think the boost folder is a brilliant idea. Never thought about it. What do you do? Do you do that every day, or is it big subjects?
I mean, I wish great things happened to me every day.
I'm sure they do.
I wish my boost folder was that full, but no, I don't do it with email. I tend to write down every night. I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I am very much Pooh Bear.
I do my
I'm Pooh Bear. 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things that went well that day, and then 3 goals for tomorrow. And then it just resets me, and I know then what's gone well that day.
That's very good.
Thank you.
There, tip for you all. Another question from CM. Joe, have you seen the men who made you feel so unwelcome since, and how were those interactions with all your success? And to the other panellists, have you any examples where someone did the same sort of bullish attitude with yourself?
Oh well, it happened to me when I left. When I was 12 years old, I wrote my very first letter to the Bar Council. Dear Sir, D-E-R. Spelling wasn't that great, and I kept that letter as a source of inspiration. And you know, when you have to go and see, you go to that rite of passage, you go and see your careers teacher. And I remember bringing that letter to her, and I was shaking my hand. She looked at it and said, "You, Wallace, a lawyer. At best, you're going to end up packing shelves, but somebody like you is definitely going to end up in prison." I mean, she was right about me ending up in prison. Only she forgot to say that after having seen my client, I can go home again. But to be told that as a 15-year-old was devastating, to say the very least. And as I said to you earlier, the only way I could ensure that would never happen to me is make sure I had an educated mind. And I said I'd never, ever go back to that school. And I only lived from that school, about 2 miles from that school. Anyway, fast forward to my 33rd birthday. And it was an interview by The Guardian. And I couldn't be bothered to get dressed in a pinstripe suit, and I looked like a sort of flash footballer. And who read it? My old teacher. So he told me that he almost choked on his cornflakes. So they wrote to me, because I still live on the same road that I grew up on. I've been living on the same road for 60 years. And they wrote to me.
And Jenny from the block.
Yeah. And well, when I looked at it, I said, that's an invite to me. So anyway, when I went back, rang him up and said, look, I'm going to come into the school. And you know, when you go back to your old school, you feel like Gulliver. You've grown taller, the school shrunk. I remember about 8 of the teaching staff who came out to meet me were there, and one of them's jaw dropped so low you could have lifted it up with a forklift truck. And for me, it wasn't about saying, hey, look what I've done, because it wasn't about me proving you wrong. It's about what I can do for myself. And it was wonderful when, you know, I gave out the prizes and, you know, spoke to the students saying how important it is not to be put off by your goals. Anyway, fast forward 10 years later, I'm the first Black Mastermind champion. Mm-hmm. And it so happened to coincide with the school's 50th anniversary. So they wrote to me again. Would I come to the big celebration at the House of Lords? And I was the only student they invited. And, you know, I was sitting there, you know, eating. I said, it just goes to show, if you allow people to control your destiny, you'll become what you can't be instead of what you can be. Mm-hmm. So, you know, for me, it's always about trying to stay in control of your own destiny and, you know, always have that belief, perseverance and faith that you can succeed. The one thing I will always say this, you know, we're all in the chorus line. There's a very thin line between obscurity, where talent will never ever shine or thrive, and, you know, success. And I always say to people, even the most successful entrepreneur had to start from somewhere. And they were given that opportunity. And I always say to people, always make sure you put your best foot forward. Because sometimes the way in which you conduct yourself or portray yourself is just as important as the qualifications which you don't pay any attention to, which I think is quite right. But the one thing I always say, and I always make this point, that when you're plucked from the chorus line to become the lead singer, make sure you can sing.
And can I just add one thing? Because we've talked about talent a lot. And yes, we need talent, and we need talent across the globe. But it is all about opportunity. It's about opportunity, so we need to not only make opportunity for people, but also when we see opportunity, make sure you take it.
Yeah, I remember, because of the story you just told, I was sent to interview a very, very famous interviewee, made his career being one of the best, and I was helping the cameraman set up, and he didn't think I heard him. He went, oh, God, they've sent their work experience. And that nearly scarred, and I nearly gave up because of that, and I'm glad I didn't, because I now have an OBE for services to broadcast.
Exactly.
So and he's passed away.
Yeah.
Right,
but as I say, going back to Dom's point, it's important that, leaders like Dom, leaders like Jason, say, look, here we are. We don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. And that's what should always inspire any person coming to, because when you talk about it, the industry in terms of insurance it's a bastion of sort of establishment whereby, only the very top come from a certain particular social background. But you're trying to knock down barriers, you're trying to knock down walls, you're trying to say, look, we've adopted a different approach. We've adopted it for the last 10 years. We mean business. And, we mean what we say. So be empowered by that. Be inspired by that.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds of the last line.
Yeah, just very quick. The only thing I'd say about insurance careers now, if you don't mind me saying, Shaun, is, well, I think probably always, but certainly now, nothing's linear. I know quite a lot, most of the senior people in the industry. No one has a straightforward story. Most people messed up in their 20s somewhere, messed up at school, did something wrong, were in trouble with the police. I shouldn't say that very seriously.
Put your hand up.
Exactly. But everyone has a story, and you're absolutely right. It's about resilience. You're absolutely right. It doesn't just go like that. Now, I think it might have done once. Anyway, it's becoming more meritocratic.
Right. We press on. I want to say thank you for your wisdom, your honesty, and your inspiration. So can you give a huge round of applause to our panel, please? Thank you. I think what we have learned is that belonging is not just a thing to have. It's a foundation. What are you two up to?
I was a little bit fast.
The naughty student. We've learned that belonging is not just a nice thing to have. It's a foundation of progress. It gives people the license and the courage, as we've seen, to be their best selves and strive for more. But before we officially end the dive-in festival. I'm losing my teeth. Oh, I need a drink. I'm not sure what. We want to end it on a high. So we've reflected, we've been inspired, and now we're going to leave out with a laugh out loud and together. I'm delighted to welcome the brilliant Diona Doherty, a comedian, actor, and writer who's been lighting up stages and screens with her wit and her energy. From Derry Girls, Have a Word, and a series regular on The Blame Game and The News Quiz, she's now here for us to help us close the festival with humour and heart. We'll get off the stage. The stage is hers, but make Diona feel welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's like changing rooms. Look how quick they're going to go. Boom, 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 go, 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 go. Move it or lose it. Thank you so much for having me. Oh, shit in hell. You had one job, move the water. Do you want a hand with that? Is that too heavy for you? You all right? I feel like this is very distracting. Oh, fuck, he's away now, this. Right. Somebody bought my jacket? We all good? Give a round of applause, please, for your panelists that you just listened to. I'm keeping this one. I'll let you have that. There you go. You have to be tables for you. This one's Meg here. Do you want that one? You can have that. There you are. Fair play to you. Listen, congratulations to Lloyds for building such high-performance teams, and for being globally inclusive, and for proving that no matter what happens, there will always be a 64-page form for that. Because I feel like insurance is like, getting a night out with your friends. And that, it's a great idea at the time, until it gets to about 3:30 in the morning and you realise you haven't read the terms and conditions. I feel like insurance is like the office printer. It's there for peace of mind. But when you need to actually use it, none of us have a clue how it works. And I feel like insurance is like parenting, in that you hope for the best, but you absolutely prepare for the worst. Give me a cheer if you've got kids. Plenty of tired, exhausted, miserable groans. I've got 2 kids as well. Both of my kids were born through IVF, and I think it's amazing. They were both. Thank you very much. They were both frozen embryos when they went in. I had to defrost them myself, like some sort of human microwave. But I think it's amazing that that's how they were born, and hilarious when I think back on the decade I spent taking the morning after pill like it was a multivitamin. Whoopsie! But I hated being pregnant. I hated pregnancy altogether. The constant nausea and heartburn and fatigue. And actually, during my first pregnancy, I had COVID really badly. I nearly died. But at least I now know how my husband feels when he has the cold. We gave both of our kids what I think are quite unique names. My daughter's called Winter, like the season, and my son's called Rocky, like the road. And I think they're quite, and I wanted them to be equally unique names as well, because I do want them to be equally bullied. But I'm so glad they're both here. I've got the both of them now, and I really try not to compare them. But anyone with kids here will know it's really difficult not to compare your first with your favourite. And I met my husband like 12 years ago, and he's. I basically had to kiss a few frogs in the process, you know, or as we like to call them in Northern Ireland, cousins. Yeah. But we met years before all the dating apps came into play, you know, and I think dating apps is sort of like insurance as well, in that you have to like declare all your pre-existing conditions and just hope somebody will take you on, you know. And I've always had bad anxiety leaving my kids with anybody, you know, and our babysitter Megan has them today, and she's amazing. And any of the days that she's coming over, my daughter wakes up and she's like, yes, Megan's coming over today, you know, and then that's like, oh, sigh of relief for me. And then she spends all day being like, you know, oh, Megan's amazing. When's Megan getting here? Megan's so much fun. Megan has the best games ever. Megan's gorgeous. I love Megan's hair. She's amazing. I'm like, is she? Aye. Every year on my daughter's birthday, I record like a wee sit-down interview with her. You know, I just think it'll be nice to look back on when she's older. And she turned 4 recently. And in the interview, I said to her, Winter, you are my best friend. To which she responded, my best friend is Megan. I said, well, that's a pity. We have to pay your best friend to come over here, isn't it? But I sort of wish my husband sometimes would be more like an insurance policy. You know, and that if he was doing a good job of it, you wouldn't even know he was there. He reminds me I'm approaching 40 at the minute, and he reminds me all the time that like we're getting that bit older. He's 42 now, and he reminds me all the time. Like, for instance, a few weeks ago, we were driving back from Asda, and he reminded me how old we were. He was like, isn't that there a lovely big roundabout? And I cried. And you're choked on my Werther's original. But I'm at that age where I'm approaching 40, so I'm trying to do better things. I'm just trying to be a better person. I think a lot of us are in this day and age. I'm trying to be a better person. And I did a bit of research on it. And apparently, what you're supposed to do when you're trying to become a better person is you're supposed to heal your inner child, right? Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that because, sadly, I have 0 childhood trauma. Thank you. Do you know how useless it is to be a comedian who needs material to being raised by 2 bloody loving, stupid, supportive parents? Like, don't get me wrong, I'll hear other comedians talk about being raised below the poverty line. You're like coming from a broken home, and I'm like, you lucky bastards. Like, my dad came to a gig of mine one time, and he's so supportive. He rang me afterwards. He was like, that was brilliant. That was really funny. He goes, I was having to think about one of your jokes, and I think I know how I could make it a wee bit funnier. I said, well, you could have made it funnier if you'd have walked out in this, you selfish prick. Because I had a fun childhood, I had a nice time, right? My 4-year-old said to me recently, she was like, Mommy, what did you do for fun when you were growing up? I says, well, we played proper games in a mysterious place called outside. Games like Kissy Chase. Give me a cheer if you remember Kissy Chase. Yes, where all the fellas in the street would chase you, catch you, hold you on and kiss you. That was a fun game. And actually, in our street, you had the option not to be kissed, you know, because we were very progressive. Instead, you would get punched. I'd come into the house crying, holding my black eye, and my mummy would be like, oh, she went for the punch. That's my good Catholic girl. I was trying to explain to my daughter about another game we all played back then, and hopefully you guys played it here too, and you'll remember. I said, what we used to do is we used to stand on opposite sides of the road, and we would get a ball, and we would throw the ball, and we just hoped it hit the curb. She was like, Mommy, that sounds shit. She goes, what do you even call that game? Does anybody know? Shout it if you know what you call the game. Curbs. Oh, that's weird. Who's Kirby? Anything else? What was that? That was just a cough. Okay. Strange way to call that game. Kirby, Kerbs. This is the thing back home. There's a big debate whether it's Kirby or Kerbsy. That debate starts more arguments back home than the Derry Londonderry one, let's be honest. I said to my daughter, listen, you call that game whatever you want, all right? But if you call it Kerbsy, you will go back to the clinic. I just miss being younger. I miss being that age, the innocence of it. I've had the same best friend since I was a toddler. And I sort of live vicariously through her now because she's still single and I've been married for ages, and because her dating history is hilarious. For me, it's quite depressing. For her, I think. But she genuinely once matched with a mechanic on Tinder on purpose, so he would come over to your house and change the oil in her car. She got a GP to diagnose her at lunch one time. No, not very well. He just sort of looked her up and down and went, I can't really put my finger on it, but there's definitely something wrong with you. My absolute favourite is she rang me one day and she said, Diona, I was on a date last night. Brought this guy back to my house. He thought he was getting lucky, but I thought he was really boring. However, it was extremely tall. So I got him to go up into the attic and get my Christmas tree down. She's a genius. Although she hates the dating life, she feels like, you know, she's going on date after date and it goes absolutely nowhere. I said to her, I think you have far too high expectations. She absolutely does not want to date a guy who has kids. I said, if you don't want him to have kids, you're going to have to not be 42. I said, you're being too fussy, you know, because like, so I'm a stepmom. I've got 3 stepkids at home as well as my own kids. I said to her, you're being too fussy. There's nothing more beautiful than a blended family. Because I'm at the stage where my daughter asks all the time, Mommy, what is it again? What does a blended family mean? And I always say, a blended family means that your daddy got it wrong the first time. No, I love my stepsons. They're great. They're all grown up now, actually, but whenever they were younger, we used to do this really fun thing in our house, right, called 30 seconds of bad talk, right? You should do it at home if there's any kids there that you also don't give a shit about. And I'm joking. And it was 30 seconds of bad talk. So in that 30-second time frame, they could curse. You know, they could say any bad things they wanted. Nobody would ever get into any trouble. It was really fun. It was really liberating for them and hilarious for us, you know. But my youngest stepson has always been really, really innocent, and he would never want to say the bad curse words, you know. He would be there. His 30 seconds would start. He'd be like, poo-poo head, you know, farty face. Fuck off back to Derry. You're not my real mum. I hate you. So cute. I never knew where I got it from. Only joking, of course I do. His real mum. I'm going to leave you with a fun fact. Did you know that Mariah Carey insured her voice for 35 million? Yeah. What a cracking deal that would have been to clamp down 35 million. Although every time I hear all I want for Christmas is you, I really wish I had have insured my ears. Guys, you've been lovely. I hope you've really enjoyed the festival. My name's Diona Doherty. Thank you so much. Safe home.
By the time I walk onto the stage, I'm probably going to have to walk straight back on. Just wanted to say thank you all for your contribution to the Dive-In Festival. It's been absolutely amazing, as we've said again and again. And those preparations for next year starts already. Have a good Christmas in between that. I'd just like now for our closing remarks to introduce Nick Klein to bring you onto the stage to say a few words and put the cherry on top of the cake.
Thank you very much. I've had some amazingly difficult imposter syndrome moments in my career, but right now that imposter little voice in my head is going absolutely crazy, going, Nick, what on earth are you doing on this stage, following such an amazing collection of speakers who are so capable, so articulate? What are you doing? And then another part of my brain is going, Nick, what happened to the lectern that you were expecting to stand behind, which was going to protect you from the audience, on which you were going to rest your piece of paper, which had a built-in microphone so you could wave your hands around as well. All that's gone, so I'm going to adapt. Thank you. I think we call it pivoting, don't we? I'm going to pivot. It doesn't mean I can walk around the stage as if I own it, which is quite good. Now, I had the great pleasure of being the chair of inclusion at Lloyd's. And if you see Dom later and see the size of those shoes he's wearing, you'll know there's no way anyone can fill those shoes. I've also been quite nervous today, even before I knew the lectern was going to disappear, because for many years I've sat where you're sitting tonight at this event, which is always one of my favourite events, at least it was. And I sat at that event never having any ambition or desire to stand up here and do the closing speech. And I guess what's happened is I just kept volunteering for things, and this is kind of what happened. And I was also a bit nervous because I've been at this event many times, and I know that sometimes some stuff happens that's kind of not expected. Not the thing that happened that wasn't expected, but the team plan things. Normally the last person who knows about that thing is the Muppet on the stage, which is me. So I have been assured that I am the last act this evening, but I don't believe it. But we'll see. So I'm going to try, if you let me just go through a few of the things I was going to say this evening. So I think this Dive-In festival has been absolutely extraordinary. Jason went through some of the figures that we've had, the level of engagement. We've also had some new festival partners join us this year, which under the circumstances I think is absolutely fantastic. And not only have they joined as sponsors, they've actually got massively engaged as well in the events, which is so important. It's clear and massively satisfying that our theme of Belonging Builds Tomorrow has resonated deeply with all of you. We've heard some powerful stories and some bold ideas from every corner of the world, and it's not just been a slogan, it's a strategy for building better businesses, stronger teams, and a sustainable industry. I have been to events where I've learnt about some of the science behind belonging and how it links to performance in sport. I've also heard about how belonging can be created and measured within a business, and how much it really matters to people beyond the tangible and the material. I also learnt yesterday about the sensitive topic of domestic abuse, how it impacts the lives and careers, and what actions employers can take to support its victims. And I will add this topic to neurodiversity and to menopause as areas I have learnt about thanks to Dive-In, knowledge which I hope make me a better colleague and a better leader. My wife's here as well, and I hope they make me a better husband as well. And then today I was delighted to hear about the steps being taken to unlock the barriers to female career progression. And this afternoon I heard about some of the behaviours that leaders can and do exhibit to promote an open culture. So thank you again for your participation and commitment over the course of this week, and I hope you continue to stay engaged as we build a better tomorrow, one where belonging is not the exception but the standard. Now, 11 years ago, Dive-In was created by an incredible team of people through the Inclusion at Lloyd's Committee, and some of those people are here tonight, including Dom. I think Shaun, you called them, where's Shaun gone? Shaun called them the pioneers. And they were the people who got things moving from a standing start. And you know they say a job started is a job half done. Well, these guys got the job more than half done, going from zero to where we were a year ago, 10 years in. Absolutely phenomenal. And we on our committee take their legacy very seriously. And this year we're focusing on 4 key areas, which I'll just quickly talk about, just in case anyone wants to get involved. Firstly, we're helping to coordinate outreach to schools and universities. So we're working with the London Market Group to ensure that their brilliant work in this area, and that of many other people, is understood, amplified, and is as impactful as possible. My ambition, and I'm sure we all share that, is that one day we'll be able to stop saying that we're not very good at selling this industry. Secondly, we're working to create more diversity in senior roles. So, for example, while 40% of underwriters are women, at senior levels, this falls to below 20%. And alongside the LMA and Lloyd's, we're working to understand the reasons behind this and what actions we can take. Excuse me. If I'd had a lectern, I wouldn't be able to do this with my bit of paper. Our third topic is career returners. Now, this is about welcoming professionals back into the market after any sort of career break, and it's a win-win. We gain senior talent and we diversify leadership. And there have already been some great success stories about this across the market, and we're working alongside the Insurance Families Network to encourage broader adoption of these programs. And finally, number 4, we know that attracting the best people and widening the talent pipeline is the only half of the story. We need to create spaces where people feel that they belong and so want to stay here. And the Lloyd's partner networks and this amazing Dive-In Festival are absolutely critical for promoting connection, support, and cultural progress so people can feel at home in this great industry. So I would just like to repeat some of the thanks that Jason gave earlier to our global festival partners, to the governance group, Jason, Catherine, and Jen here, the Dive-In Advisory Board, the volunteers around the world, and again, the amazing Lloyd's team who work so tirelessly to deliver this festival for you. This team works all year round to raise sponsorship, which has been particularly challenging this year, but they've done an absolutely outstanding job, and organise the event. And then as we saw on Tuesday morning, and today, we know that their work doesn't end when the festival starts. They have to run around responding to unplanned events as they happen in real time. Now, Jason's already mentioned their names, but I will tell you that unless they've gone off to respond to more unplanned events, they should all be in this room. So if you could, again, show them your appreciation, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. And so to close, belonging does not end here. It starts here and continues in every meeting room, every policy decision, every hiring conversation, and in every leadership moment. So let's take what we've learned and continue to build cultures where everyone feels empowered to make a difference. Thank you very much.
ਦੇ ਦੂੰਗੀ ਮੈਂ ਥਿੰਕ ਕਰ ਦੇਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਦੱਸ ਦੇ ਸੁਣ ਲਾ ਵੀ ਤੂੰ ਸਿਮ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆਲਾ ਫੋਟੋ ਵੀ ਫਰਾਰੀ ਲਾਉਂਦੀ ਚੁੰਨੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਰੰਗ ਦੇ ਲੜਾਈਆਂ ਇਹ ਚੁੰਨੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਰੰਗ ਦੇ ਲੜਾਈਆਂ ਤੇਰੇ ਰਾਤ ਦੀ ਗੱਡੀ ਦੇ ਕਾਟਦੀ ਚੁੰਨੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਰੰਗ ਦੇ ਲੜਾਈਆਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਰਾਤ ਦੀ ਗੱਡੀ ਦੇ ਕਾਟਦੀ